Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Mirror Dungeons solo video. Today we'll be using a staple of any solo run, Zwei Sinclair. Usually, always on the bench, it's time he finally gets a shot at a run himself. With him being a tank identity, he's already better at soloing than most others anyways. Most of his kit is not that interesting, nor does it do much, but his skill 3 is the best thing he has. The roll alone is enough for it to be good, especially for a 2-star with it rolling a 20, but the most important part, especially in regards to soloing, is that it has the potential to give 3 protection next turn. Using just 2 of these is enough for him to take virtually no damage from even fatal attacks. It also has a nice bonus of inflicting blunt fragility, though with his absolutely horrendous speed stat of 2 to 4, you'll never get any use out of it in a normal run. But it is very nice when he's soloing. Really, he's just a solid 2-star tank unit, though without his skill 3 he can end up being fairly useless if enemies aren't targeting him. Support passives for this run are standard for the most part, the exceptions being Molar Office Yi-Song for defense down on Tremor Burst, Regret Faust for potentially extra clash power, Lantern Dawn for an incredibly reliable healing and focus encounters, and finally LCP Otis because I forgot to change her into G-Corp. The starting gifts we pick up are Reverberation and Sour Liquor Aroma while we head into the Forgotten as the first floor. The boss for this floor isn't that bad despite the fact that they have access to slash skills which we are fatal to. They get us close, right on the cusp of staggering, but thanks to Sinclair's tankiness he's able to avoid it. With the enemies being fatal to blunt damage and having access to a fairly powerful skill 3, they're not much of an issue as we can fairly easily take all of them out. We pick up the blue Zippo lighter as our reward, getting Eclipse of Scarlet Moths as a bonus and head into the next floor in line with the Outcast. Here we pick up an extra skill 3, as well as taking Bloody Gadget, Green Spirit, and Carmilla. With a bunch of new ego gifts, this floor is much easier than the first, and we enter the boss against the Golden Apple. This guy's barely a boss, to be honest. Being fatal to blunt damage results in us quickly taking off the golden sheen and revealing its grotesque true nature. Having access to a 20 rolling skill still makes the second form just as trivial as the first, as we easily clash with all of its attacks. Even if we didn't, it wouldn't make much of a difference, as the apple seriously lacks any sort of damage output to begin with. But Brain sees funny yellow arrow and thinks, ooh yes, clashing good. Taking our reward of the Oscillating Bracelet and receiving Mirror Tactile Synthagia as a bonus, we head into the third floor of Emotional Indolence. Here we find the best ego gift we could have possibly gotten in the form of the Rusty Commemorative Coin. With Zwei Sinclair's skill 3 being incredibly powerful as well as a single coin skill, means he is one of the best users of this ego gift. The boss for this floor is Headless Ichthys, and he's a little rough to say the least. Having had to use egos in some of the previous fights meant we were entering this fight without 45 sanity. Normally this wouldn't be much of an issue if not for the fact that Ichthys inflicts so much attack power down that even with a 20 rolling skill, we can't reliably win any clashes without an incredible amount of luck. On top of this, we are slightly weak to some of his attacks, so opting to use an ego for better resistances brings our sanity down into the negatives. Now, with virtually no way to win any clashes, I decide the best course of action would be to simply force corrosion in order to reset our sanity back to neutral. We could take our chances clashing normally, but corroding is the safer and easier of the two options. This corrosion also has the unintended benefit of staggering both arms, forcing him into a state of inaction. We take advantage of the unopposed attacks and Lantern's Rupture infliction to destroy the tail, ensuring that we no longer have to worry about taking any more fatal attacks. With that, victory is inevitable, albeit more than a little tedious as I keep getting slightly unlucky with my rolls and losing clashes. Even still, winning only one clash every turn is more than enough to restore our sanity, guaranteeing more than enough odds to win most clashes and escape unscathed. Choosing Nixie Divergence as our reward for more tremor support, we head into the 4th floor, Sinking Pain. Here we take Late Bloomer's Tattoo and make the mistake of receiving Broken Compass through its event. Now this seemingly innocent decision had rippling effects as we enter into the next fight against the Whale of the Porous Hand. The compass alone wouldn't be enough to make this difficult, but it, combined with Carmilla, meant that I could not regain sanity on the first turn. And with the big mermaids not being staggered, they kept reducing my sanity more and more. By the time I managed to defeat 2 of them, my sanity was no more than neutral, and not being able to win any clashes meant I kept getting staggered and dying. Despite this though, the winning run was actually incredibly easy and very simple. You see, when I said this fight was difficult, what I actually meant to say was beating it without using egos is difficult. Coming straight off the Headless Ichthys fight meant I was completely out of gluttony resources, and as such could not use Lantern. And being the stubborn bastard that I am, I really did not want to use Lifetime Stew. But after a few dozen failed attempts, I ultimately gave in. A single use combined with commemorative coin was more than enough to defeat all 3 of the little mermaids. After that, one skill 3 ended up staggering both of the big ones, and they fell shortly afterwards. The boss for this floor is everyone's favorite sad frog, the Blubbering Toad. He is once again the easiest boss to solo as long as you have a corrodable ego. Let me just say though, never pick this floor in a solo run if you're strapped for ego resources. Every single fight was basically just forced corrosion after forced corrosion. My gluttony resources were consistently in the negatives, and with Sinclair's only really good ego being Lantern, meant I could never use it when I wanted to. Other than that, easy boss. Next floor. We pick up the Bell of Truth as our reward and choose Thunder and Lightning as the final floor. We buy Clockwork Spring at the shop and fuse Downpour and Melted Eyeball before the final boss. We face up against KQE as our final challenge, guaranteeing the success of the run. He's a non-threat to any identity, let alone a tank one. His whole gimmick revolves around dealing around like 60 unavoidable damage, and that's it. When you consistently have over 200 HP, that's not very dangerous. Even though our damage output is not the best, it's also not an issue as we very easily defeat KQE in a short amount of time. Honestly, KQE's problem is that he's just way too slow and has far too few skills. If he simply did his captivity every other turn instead of around every 3, he could potentially be a lot more threatening and interesting of a fight.
저 진짜 열심히 했어요. 인정받은 것 같아서 기뻐요.
But that's how I soloed Mirror Dungeon 4 hard with the staple of the solo team's Zwei Sinclair. A fairly decent tank unit with an incredible skill 3. His biggest problem is his fairly weak skill 2. It just doesn't really do a whole lot, and Sinclair's limited egos, though that's an issue that's easily remedied by time. In fact, the new Blubbering Toad ego is probably one of the best egos for Zwei Sinclair. I should have waited for it to release before doing this run, but oh well. Anyway, like and subscribe to not miss next time where we'll be going in with this shadowy figure. Goodbye!